It's the Let's Go Eat and Drink Show with Jimmy Santangelo and Bill Allred.
Let's go eat and talk about. But I get to what you're saying, 'cause you got food in your mouth.
I'm your announcer, Zach Gayton, and we're coming to you live on tape from the beautifully appointed media center at Visit Salt Lake. Wouldn't you like to record in a studio like this? That's rhetorical. I know you would like to record in a studio like this, and maybe you can. Check it out at www.visitsaltlake.com. It seems clear that the Great Salt Lake is becoming less great. Yes, Utah's inland sea is shrinking at an alarming rate, and there are dire predictions that one day the lake will be nothing more than a small, intensely salty puddle. What does the lake mean to us? Why should we care about the health of a body of water that most of us never even visit? We can't drink the lake water, or at least that's what they tell me. It's not particularly nice to swim in, and during certain times of the year, what we call lake stink permeates the valley. You know what I'm talking about. So what if the Great Salt Lake goes away? Here to talk us through these questions and more about the Great Salt Lake are Olivia Juarez and Meisei Gonzalez, hosts of the podcast Stay Salty, Lakefacing Stories. The podcast explores what it means to us as the lake dries up and turns into a toxic dust bowl.
Who's this handsome guy, huh? Yeah, my name's Jim Santangelo. Yeah, Jimmy the wine guy, or Jim Santangelo. Nice picture.
Oh, thank you. We have a pretty amazing photographer on our team.
That was a fun day.
For sure.
And I love all that, your answers to the questions were great. Which brings me to, and I'll talk about it again, but just so you know, because dryish January, you were mentioning kind of you're not trying to think about beer, wine, and spirit. That's your New Year's resolution. And dryish, yeah, dryish. A buddy of mine who's a sommelier on the floor of a restaurant, when he points out the recipe, he's like, all these wines are dry and these ones are a sweet one. Some people, you know what to do. But this I selected is it's non-alcoholic, and I know you like ciders, so this is a ginger beer. No alcohol, but strength of flavor and components of a cider without the booze. So I'm kind of a combo there. It's going to have some bits in it.
Great.
But that, and we'll talk more about
I hope the bits are apple.
Kibbles and bits.
Where did you find it?
This said, my uncle Joe, he trades. Trader
Right.
Joe's.
Those are those are gnats.
They're swimming in there. All right, let's get us going. Sorry about that.
Dawson, I want to know what you mean when you put here podcast hosts with benefits. What does that mean?
They do a lot more than just being podcasts.
That makes it sound like they're both sleeping with you.
I know. I was like, this is my girl. And also,
They're podcast hosts with benefits.
What's the opposite of benefit?
Benefits of being in Salt Lake City. We're fortunate to have them.
Oh, okay.
That's
How about Podcast Host Plus?
Yeah,
really
there you go.
vague, Dawson.
Sounds like a subscription.
Yep. Olivia and Meisei, podcast hosts with benefits. Oh, I know what it means. It means that you're both on public assistance.
we got benefits.
Yes.
We got the bennies.
All right. Let's see.
That is so funny.
We'll get going here. All right. Enough of that. Let's settle down. Let's not have fun while we're here.
Yeah,
okay?
come on, all
No
right.
fun. We got to be serious. Well, we're going to be talking about a pretty serious topic: the continuation of the Great Salt Lake. Will it survive? Let's talk about it. But first, before we get to that, I want to thank everybody who's listening and watching this, our subscribers. And Visit Salt Lake, of course, here where we are. Are we rolling, Dawson?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Are we rolling with benefits? That's just what I'd like to know.
more to come.
The show today brought to you, of course, by Beehive Cheese. In a league of its own, Utah's Beehive Cheese elevates humble cheddar to artisanal greatness with spirited flavors that spark conversation, producing award-winning cheeses that bring friends and family together. It's interesting to think of cheese bringing people together, isn't it? But it does. Beehive Cheese are in first place at the 2022 American Cheese Society competition. They were named makers of the Best American Cheese at the World Cheese Awards 2021, earning the Slow Food Snail of Approval late 2022. Beehive Cheese also one of only 7 American cheesemakers to be B Corp certified, and I'm not going to go into what B Corp means. Again.
They also won, and we'll update this, they just won 2024 another award.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the past, this past fall. And then this spring that's coming up, they're really gearing up to produce more. So we're real proud with Beehive Cheese. But we have something different for us today. We have some shrimp that we'll talk more about here shortly.
Yeah. We'll get to that. We will. Let's introduce our guest, Olivia Rodriguez. Juarez and Meisei Gonzalez. Okay, Juarez. I should write that down, because it just says Olivia and Meisei, but that's all we need for now. They are the hosts of a podcast themselves. It's called Stay Salty. The rest of the title is Lakefacing Stories. Is that right? So it's all about the Great Salt Lake. Why did the two of you decide to focus on the Great Salt Lake? What happened there?
What did happen? I gotta recap where we were at.
Well, I think at the moment that Dr. Bonnie Baxter and other colleagues in community at Westminster College looked at the dire situation of Great Salt Lake and said, this ecosystem is dying right before our very eyes. And they wrote this eulogy that went into media. A lot of the community and a lot of media woke up to this crisis that we are living right in the middle of.
Yeah.
And we were witness to all of this media for the first time coming up in like the year 2020 in Deseret News, on the radio.
There's been a lot of news about it.
The New York Times had that article about the toxic bowl.
Forbes came and they talked to brine shrimpers.
Jeepers.
The world has come to look at Salt Lake and said, wow, like this is what the climate crisis is looking like. And what we saw were professionals, very well researched, people who were studying the crisis at Great Salt Lake, and we didn't, at the same time as we're glad that that was happening, and we absolutely needed that, we thought we needed more. We needed media focusing on the residents of Tooele and the residents of all of the valleys, all the way out to Cache Valley, to understand what is the lived experience of people who are witnessing the demise of Great Salt Lake. So that's why we chose our focus.
That's Olivia Juarez. They are a lifetime Utahn based in Salt Lake. Olivia serves as Public Land Program Director of Green Latinos with Latino Outdoors, Utah Coalition of La Raza, and Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance, and done a lot of work with national parks, conservation, things like that.
Yep.
Public Land Queen.
Nice. Public Land Queen, I like that.
And now your co-host, Meisei Gonzalez. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're involved in Heel, right?
So I used to work at Heel. Now I actually work with Green Latino, so we're buddies in the Green Latino world. But I do a lot of work that's focused on the environmental justice side of things. So currently I work on climate justice and air quality. So that's kind of where I started coming into this project, as the air quality side of things. As the lake dries up, it's not only going to affect, our like the brine shrimping industry and how it connects with industry and things like that, but also the air. So they found toxics in the dust, arsenic, I think mercury levels. There's also signs of like uranium, which is really interesting due to like the testing of bombs around the southern west. So the air quality side is where I started getting really interested into it, and that's kind of my background and how I kind of joined into the project. I also love communications and all the multimedia side of things.
Whose idea was it? Olivia or Meisei, let's do a podcast about the lake.
It was Brooke's idea.
Yeah, it was Brooke's idea.
Who's Brooks?
One of our producers, Brooke Larson.
And said, and you two would be great to host it. Is that what Brooke said? Yeah. You've done how many episodes
I
of?
looked at me and she was like, Olivia's loud enough. Let's get the one.
How many episodes of Stay Salty have you done?
We have 11 episodes.
11.
Nice.
I've listened to a couple of them, and they're very well put together, very telling. The stories are interesting. I'm fascinated why you decided. How did it come about to refer to the lake as feminine, and it's always she, the Great Salt Lake? This is happening to her. How did that all come about?
I think for me it was like humanizing the lake and like getting away from like it's very industrialized and it has like a worth of money, right now.
Yeah.
It's how we
Yeah.
look at the lake.
Yeah.
We're going to lose money, but it deserves to just be itself. And I think that kind of helped me break that down. And also I just say her and she to everything. Like that's me just being my little queer self. Like I just refer to everything as her and she. So that kind of just naturally came. It just gave the energy.
Yeah.
If that
It
makes
does
sense.
personalize it. It's nice, and there may be a sense of vulnerability there too, to then appreciate and empathize more with the effects that's happening to the lake itself.
What was the most surprising thing you found out in the episodes that you've done? The most surprising thing you found out about the Great Salt Lake?
I was very surprised to hear from T, who Meisei interviewed, who is incarcerated at the state correctional facility, that people will avoid going to chow hall because they have to go outside and deal with all the mosquitoes. And I wasn't.
This is the new prison we're talking about, which has,
right on the shores of Great Salt Lake.
yeah, right on the shore of the Great Salt Lake, which has apparently multitude of problems. Mosquitoes the size of helicopters being one of them.
Yeah, just to hear that placing them in this ecosystem is preventing them from feeding themselves, and then also to hear from T that everybody at the correctional facility is scared for their lives and for their health when these dust storms come up and they can't run away from it. It's just, it's not surprising to me, but it does put a sense of shock in my heart, like these are the living conditions of our neighbors, like we put them there.
And what most surprised you, do you think?
I think when I met with Jim Hopkins for the brine shrimping episode, I didn't know how like treacherous the Great Salt Lake can be, because I'm always at the shores of it, so I'm always like, oh, it's like a chill, it's like
You can walk out 40 feet and you're still up to your
and
ankles.
he's talking about like 4-foot waves and like staying on like the boat for like a week at a time, and I was like, this sounds like a pirate story to me, like what you're telling me. So I think that was really surprising to just see a different angle of the lake and his connection to it.
The brine shrimping industry at the Great Salt Lake is a multi-million dollar industry. Has it shrunk as the lake has shrunk, or is it still thriving?
I'm not too sure about. I don't know if those are like public figures that they've came out. I know they have like I can't remember what it's called, like the Brine Shrimp Association. They're very like close quarters of what's going on. So I'm not too sure, but I'm guessing yes. I know there's a lot of concern with it. It's an international business where people from, I think Jim was saying, like people who are buying brine shrimp from like China were like concerned and like reaching out to him saying what's going on with the lake.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's just how big of magnitude it is.
I can't say like what the status is right now, but one thing that we know for sure is less water means a more saline lake basin, which are going to kill the brine shrimp and hurt productivity.
The less water, the saltier the lake gets, essentially. Brine shrimp, well, maybe we ought to talk about what brine shrimp are, yes.
Oh, let's raise a glass here to
the brine
guys.
shrimp.
To the brine shrimp.
I love that.
What is this,
Little
Jim?
ginger beer, non-alcoholic, something nice and spicy to help pass the time by.
It's got a little sediment in it. That's not brine shrimp, is it?
Nice fragments of ginger, slightly carbonated. Nice,
delicious.
Isn't that something?
Very good.
You know what that needs?
Non-alcoholic.
You know what that needs? Is some vodka.
February 1st.
Whiskey. Yeah, a little bourbon mule right there for you.
So let's talk about brine shrimp. What brine shrimp are? They're tiny. They're tiny little shrimp, essentially.
Yeah.
Are they crustaceans? I guess they are. Yeah. And they're
They're like little skeletons floating around, and they're actually pink. And when you go to places in the lake where for example, where the channel's floating through the causeway that goes across the lake, you see them in masses.
Just
Yeah.
a pink cloud going by.
Exactly.
And I'm under the impression that the brine shrimp, when they die, that's what makes the lake smell bad. Do you know if that's correct? I think that's
They
what.
wash up on the shore,
Just-
and then as the water comes out, they remain on the shore, drying out, decaying,
Yeah.
and that aroma, that aromatic, then wafts.
That's what
to
I think.
our-
That's what I'm under the impression.
I think it's like a lot of different things. Because also, like, if you go around the lake, there's so much industry around there. I'm like, they have to be stinking up the lake. Like, it is right next to like the
Certainly.
Kennecott thing, all of those things.
Yeah.
Sure.
So probably just like all these things all together, even the landfills around there. So I'm like,
Yeah, a lot of archaeobacteria probably are contributing to.
They used to just pump all the sewage in the valley, just pump it out into the lake. I don't. That doesn't happen anymore. I think. But you go swimming in the Great Salt Lake, and you go swimming past a turd. Because that's what that's where it
You
went.
swam in Great Salt Lake?
No, I have not, nor do I want to. I have no desire to swim. I've been in it a little bit, and it's so salty that it's can be painful. Of course, you get it in your eyes, but I mean, it's painful on your skin when you get out.
What's the depth of it? Its deepest part? Over your head, I'm sure.
Yeah, some of it. There are deep places in the lake.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
boat to
especially
be
those
able
boats.
to. I'm like, that has to be
I'm wondering if they're a flat boat, if they've got a. But anyways, yeah, interesting.
So let's go back to the brine shrimp at any rate. So I would assume that most people know what they do with brine shrimp, why they harvest them, but why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. So they're used, I think it's like used as fish food basically to be able to feed a lot of what we're about to eat, some shrimp. A lot of the seafood industry relies on.
No, these aren't brine shrimp right
No,
here.
not
right?
brine shrimp,
No.
but they ate brine shrimp probably.
If they're farmed, they eat brine shrimp.
Yeah, so it's just a way to kind of supply a lot of the seafood industry.
And
from my
fish
understanding.
food for your aquarium.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big part of the industry.
And pets, they're sea monkeys.
Yep.
Sea monkeys, watch them grow. And there's a king with a trident, and do you remember those ads? Or king with a trident and all.
Those were brine shrimp?
Yeah, those were the brine shrimp. Sea monkeys. Yeah,
That's fantastic.
that was a brilliant marketing idea that somebody had.
From a time period before people ate chia seeds and painted them on statues.
Yeah. And so is there just there are several different brine shrimp camps out there, right? It's not just one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's got to be a few. I
Yeah.
know one of them is off of Stansbury Island. Yeah, but as far as I understand it, the state of Utah, they are pretty actively engaged in regulating the amount of brine shrimping activity. They help the different brine shrimping operations teams decide when they should be out there harvesting, when they should pause. From what I understand from what Jamie Butler told us, who was the lead scientist for the state of Utah office, is that there's just a time period where they harvest up the brine shrimp in a time where they're kind of frozen. I think they're harvesting up their eggs. They're called cysts, I believe, and that is what the brine shrimpers want to deliver to aquaculture industry contacts, because they then hatch the cysts, and the living brine shrimp will feed their prawns and other aquaculture products.
What other industries depend on the lake itself that are out there? I know there's MagCore or U.S.
The ski
Magnesium.
industry, the snowboarding industry.
Yeah, a lot of recreation I think is tied into it.
How is that?
Well, the greatest snow on earth is, we can thank one thing for that, and that is Great Salt Lake. The lake effect brings us the high quality, very light snow that I've heard so many people say brought them to Utah, and they
Sure.
just stayed. So we wouldn't have nearly the quantity nor the quality of snow that we would have in our central Wasatch Mountains and just the range around if it wasn't for the effect that the lake had on our snowpack.
Yeah.
Do you personally, either of you, have any connection with the Great Salt Lake? Have you ever swum in it? Do you have any personal connections to it?
Yeah.
To her?
Yeah, but for me, growing up, I was in like the Magna and then like Kearns area, so it's really close to the lake. So that was just a spot like we would go and hang out. Like friends, like we would skip class and go to the Great Salt Lake. Like that's the vibe it happened. So something I really grew up around. There's this big rock. I think it's called like just a black rock. I think is what it's called.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
Black
that's where
Rock.
we would hang out, and it's kind of weird to think the water was closer to that rock, like in junior high and high school, and now it's like way further out. So. It's just a hangout spot, place where I have lots of great memories.
I remember when the Great Salt Lake got so big that it flooded across I-80 out there by Tooele. And it flooded, and that's when the governor of Utah, Norm Bangerter, said, well, we're going to put in pumps. We're going to put in these gigantic pumps. Have you done an episode on the pumps out there yet?
No, we should.
Okay,
I'm going to write that down.
So the governor, that was the year we had flooding. There were rivers running through downtown Salt Lake. There was so much runoff, so much water. The lake flooded out over I-80. And so the governor said, well, this is a disaster, so if this ever happens again, I'm putting these pumps, these big pumps in the lake, and I don't know where they are exactly, but they're out there.
West, very west.
And they and he said, so when if the lake starts to flood again, we can pump the water out and put it in other places so that it doesn't go across the freeway and all of that. And the pumps have never been used since that day. The lake, this was in the 80s, the late 80s.
Okay.
So it would be a nice episode for you to look into the Norm Bangerter and the pumps of the Great Salt Lake. Yeah.
So how do we pump water back in using those pumps?
Reverse it.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, what they're trying, how are they trying to save the Great Salt Lake? What plans are in place to save the Great Salt Lake?
Yeah, there's a lot of different efforts that are going on, from figuring out and updating water rights so water can flow more to the lake, and you don't feel like you're wasting your rights of your water.
So farmers, the water comes down out of the mountains. The farmers use a certain amount of it, and sometimes they use more of it than they need, and it could be going into the lake, and they're trying to solve that.
Yeah, and from my understanding, it's because if they don't use it, it's like a use or lose it situation. Like it's there's no like economic benefit of just letting the water flow, basically. So they're trying to fix that piece. There's conservation efforts, everything from like making sure we're not all having lawns, like reminding that we're in a desert and we don't all need that.
I've let my lawn die. and I'm happy for that because it's less work for me.
My technique was having my kids cut the lawn, and it just died naturally that way. I had them as a chore.
Oh, well, I think that there is a cultural salvation of the lake that we're working on in this community, as well as the physical salvation of the lake. So in addition to all of these measures to get water to the lake, which is the bottom line of what's actually going to save Great Salt Lake, we also had to think about what are the problems that put us in this situation in the first place, where Great Salt Lake just doesn't have enough water. And part of it is a cultural problem, how we've called it the Great Salt Lake rather than recognizing Great Salt Lake as a lake that we are in relationship with, not a resource or something that we utilize. And unfortunately, one of those cultural solutions was killed by the Utah State Legislature last year. There was an effort put on by local activists that wanted to grant recognized personhood legally to Great Salt Lake.
Oh, I see.
And at the state of Utah legislature, they passed a bill that bans giving personhood to any natural resource.
Which is, I got beef with that, because businesses are allowed to do it, but not like natural lands. So that's kind of like a,
a corporation can be a person,
salty
but Great
about
Salt Lake cannot. So we salty.
Yeah, if you could incorporate the lake, then you can personalize it to your point.
If the Great Salt Lake dries up, so does Salt Lake.
Yep.
I mean, we depend on it for our survival in a lot of ways that are not. It's unfortunate because it's not really obvious to people. Yeah. Like as the lake recedes, we're not really noticing anything about that. Most people don't even go look at the lake. They don't. It used to be people recreated on that lake all the time. They swam in it. There were boating. I think the whole marina's closed down now, isn't it? They'll
use it when they can. They've probably dredged it to be able to get boats in and out.
But there used to be a lot of private boats out there that
Oh, yeah.
people would just go boating on the Great Salt Lake and
Past the salt air there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what my childhood looked like. Growing up in Twella with a lot of family members in West Valley, like we were driving back and forth all of the time, and I loved watching those sailboats. You would see so many of them all of the time, and now, maybe there's a few weeks of the year and you have to go out and see them and hope that you catch them. And then also just the way that the starlings have changed as well. Like there would be huge, dense clouds of these birds making their incredible murmurations. You would
Murmuration,
be memorized.
good word.
Yeah.
Murmuration.
Murmuration, that's great. I love.
They're so sparse these days. So, I mean, and back to why we're here. This question of like what happens to us if Great Salt Lake dries. I think it's a question that people are starting to ask themselves, and what we ask on Stay Salty Lakefacing Stories is, if Great Salt Lake dries, are you going to stay? Can you stay? And could you leave if you had to? How do we get to stay also?
There's a question here that says, well, what can we do about this? And it would seem to me that maybe one of the most important things we could do is just be aware. Just know about it, be aware of it. And that's what you guys are trying to do with Stay Salty Lake-Facing Stories. Is that Stay Salty Lake-Facing Stories? It's a podcast. I think there are 13 episodes
11
available.
episodes.
Right now you've got more coming?
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah. Yes, hopefully.
I'm manifesting it.
Yeah.
We're manifesting. Yeah.
It's a big topic, and there's a lot to do and a lot to try and understand about it. So let's move on to something lighter a little bit, and we'll get to a splash of news here in a second.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the. Should we do the food questionnaire? Because there were some interesting answers.
There's some
there.
great stuff in there. Some great stuff.
So we ask our guests usually to fill out a food questionnaire. This is Meisei Gonzalez. Says, what is your favorite beer, wine, or spirit? Hard ciders. Sin's Black Widow is my hard cider.
Yeah.
And then, of course, tequila.
Tequila.
Nice.
You prefer tequila to mezcal?
Yeah.
Yeah? Maybe? Yeah.
Depends on the mood.
Depends on how salty you're feeling.
Yeah,
I
I'm like,
think.
And what's the wildest thing you've ever eaten? This is disgusting.
what did I put? The
fried frog legs at a fair and grasshoppers.
Yeah, grasshoppers are actually really
I've
good.
eaten grasshoppers.
It's like popcorn.
You fry. They're crispy, and they put them like soy sauce.
Yeah, I had like really salt and lime
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
We actually had like grasshopper tacos like when I was little. I thought it was normal, but I guess it's really weird.
That's literally what I wrote for my question. It's like, well, wild is kind of upon the eye of the beholder, because I went to Tijuana and had the cricket tacos,
Yep.
which isn't weird there.
You just eat it and you're like,
No,
that's good.
they're
Nobody's
normal
gonna buy a
there.
cricket taco at a restaurant here.
No.
Cricket tacos.
Yeah. The
there-
chocolinas.
There's a company here. I don't know if they're still around, but they made. I can't think of the name of the company. They made power bars out of crickets, ground up crickets.
Chapul.
Yeah, they're high-
Those were so good.
Chapul. Are they still around?
Unfortunately not. I wish they were.
Might be wrong,
I
but
like their
I think they
bars.
have good protein. I think it's a
Their
good
inventory
protein
hopped
source.
away.
Oh yeah.
But you hate oatmeal. Is that right?
I just wanted to have good karma in case I do have to feed my enemy, because I actually eat oatmeal every day. Like, obviously, not playing. Like, I really do a lot to my oatmeal, so that's why I'm like, it's fair. Like,
I thought
they'll
it's
get
surprising you
but
said
it's
oatmeal.
plain.
Like, she doesn't like oatmeal? She's got to like oatmeal.
And you're a bourbon person.
I like bourbon.
Yeah, me too.
Almost too much, which is why it's a dry-ish 2025 for me.
There you go.
We love that.
The podcast, Stay Salty, Lake-Facing Stories. And Jimmy, do you have a splash of news?
I do. I do have a splash of news here for us. I have two, I think. Let me see. I'll read the first one here. Wines and ciders for the holiday feast. Choosing what to drink should be the easiest part of your holiday planning. Most often, wine is the choice for your holiday meals, but it doesn't have to be. Cider is a wonderful choice, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, as well as beer, iced tea, cider wine blends, or even just water. Ew, just water. Holiday meals may have many moving parts. Beverages ought not to be the least of your worries. What you want to avoid when selecting is high alcoholic wines or those that are too tannic, sweet, or oaky. So select more of a Pinot Noir, Southern Rhone blend, or unoaked whites. The wine should cut through the starchy, salty, rich, and roasted fare rather than add more texture and richness to the dish. Ciders are another wonderful option. I want to touch on ciders for us. They're lower in alcohol than most all wines and would go great with most holiday meals. Ciders also feel seasonal as well as when celebrating in the fall. The bottles you buy may come from the previous harvest. So eat fresh, drink fresh, right? You know, just
Amen.
coining something.
Yeah.
The key is not to stress with all the complications in organizing the holiday feast. What to drink should be the easiest part. So do you have a holiday beverage during, say, the Christmas holidays or during that time period in the end of the year? Is there a holiday beverage that you and your family has?
Eggnog and bourbon.
Eggnog and bourbon?
Eggnog and bourbon, or eggnog with bourbon in it?
Well, I've done both. I've done an aged eggnog that has bourbon, rum, brandy.
Nice.
Could I get your address?
Yeah, we're coming over.
I started making this because we got chickens in 2020 and when we didn't have anything else to do and we just had way too much eggs on our hands that holiday season.
Oh
so
my gosh, that's
very
fantastic.
good.
And that's the
now-
classic combination, whiskey, rum, and cognac and/or brandy, yeah.
So when you say an aged eggnog, how do you age it? Just
They're over easy. And you,
It sounds a little crazy, but I kept it in my refrigerator from October till about Christmas time. And I
did you do
think-
anything to it, or just let it sit there?
It was mellowing in the alcohol, so I mixed it all up together. It was
Okay.
mellowing. I pasteurized the eggs myself too to make extra safety precautions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
heated it.
Yeah,
Low
but
heat.
you could. I would test it periodically.
Well,
I was a little
of course, only in the AM.
And the flavor profile really drastically
It developed
changed.
over time.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Mellowing is the word.
Nice.
And you put all the spices in it and everything, and all the alcohol, and then stick it in the fridge.
Yep, in a mason jar bigger than my head.
Yeah, those big ones. I love those.
I am just, I'm in awe.
Yeah.
I'm in awe of that.
It's good stuff.
And holiday beverages for you?
Our family does ponche, which is like this like Mexican, I call it like hot jungle juice, because you just put a lot of fruit in.
jungle juice.
Yeah, it's how it feels.
Oh, I've had this.
It's like guava, oranges, apple, like a lot of fruit.
Yeah.
You like, it's a whole day thing. Where they're just like stewing it, and then we pour a lot of tequila in it. So
There
that's
you
what
go.
we drink.
Yep.
Does your
ponche.
family put nuts in it too?
Yeah, it's like all sorts of stuff. That's what it feels
a
like.
meal in a cup.
Yeah,
Sounds like you're
Drink.
clearing out the cupboard and the fridge.
It kind of gives that energy. They put it, even sugar cane, like the cane
love
thing
it.
pieces it, so it like absorbs the tequila.
Oh
so we're just
my
chewing on
gosh.
these tequila sugar cane.
Hey, I found
That's what
some
you give to the
raisins.
kids.
Throw them in.
Throw 'em in.
Yeah,
That's great.
all
What are
right.
y'all's holiday drinks?
I'll have eggnog, some, not a lot, because it's too filling.
Yeah.
It's very filling. I'll have a glass of eggnog, a cup of eggnog. I love the taste of it, and then I'll just pour bourbon on ice and go from there.
Bourbon on ice.
Yeah, that's
And the rest of the day is pretty nice.
Yeah.
I got one more if you want me to read it.
Sure.
This is a good one. General Mills drops Progresso soup into candy. Have you heard about this?
Ew, no.
Right. Progresso serves up candified soup. Get a load of this. General Mills' latest quirky product brings the taste of a bowl of soup into a hard candy confection.
Absolutely not.
A soup drop.
Sometimes ideas don't have to be like made.
Yeah, they should not have left the whiteboard, right? Just keep it up there. Progresso soup drops contain the flavor of the brand's chicken noodle soup in the same shape as a lemon dropped candy. The brand referred to the product as soup you can suck on. According to the press release, the candy contains the taste of broth, savory vegetables, chicken, egg noodles, and parsley. When you're sick, quote, when you're sick, nothing is truly more reassuring than chicken noodle soup. So we thought, why stop at a bowl? We took the beloved flavors of Progresso chicken noodle soup and packed them into a fun, savory candy soup drop for a total new way to enjoy the taste you love whenever and wherever you want.
Honey, I don't feel good. Can I suck on some soup?
Fortunately for us, they're available for a limited time each Thursday this month at the brand's website while supplies last. A bag of candy,
I'd like to try it, actually.
I would love to try it.
Yeah.
A bag of candy also comes with a can of Progresso chicken noodle soup. It comes with a can. So there, my friends, is your splash of news.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we'll wrap it up here, I think. Remember to listen to the podcast, Stay Salty, Lakefacing Stories, wherever podcasts are sold, obtained. There are 13 episodes right now?
11.
11 episodes available. I've listened to 2 or 3 of them. They're entertaining. They're well put together. Informative. The brine shrimp one was great. And then I was sort of half listening. It was the brine shrimp one where you were talking to a scientist or a woman who was out there with them doing all kinds of measurements and things.
Yeah, that's Jamie Butler.
Oh yeah, she was really great.
She is an
amazing.
incredible person.
Yeah.
She's a beacon
Shout
of
out
light.
Jamie.
So there's stuff. And do you have a website?
Yeah, we're on Instagram out of Salt and Sand, and I would love to invite listeners to come check out the plackets that we have downtown, just across the street between Squatters and the Rose Wagner Theaters, those little street billboards. A lot of the podcast guests, whose like beautiful portrait photography captured by our creative director Jerry Gravelin are published up on the street side right now. We're going to do a little scavenger hunt tour. We're going to serve coffee and hot chocolate one of these Saturdays coming up, so folks can see when that's coming up and check out the plackets with us.
Look forward to
on
that.
Instagram
Okay,
at
great.
Salt and
Absolutely.
Sand.
A pleasure to meet both of you.
Let's grab a glass and cheers. Thank you very much for joining us.
Have some shrimp if
Let's
you'd
go
like.
eat and drink.
Salud.
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 Prost. All right, that's about it. Listen, thank you for being here. If you want to get a hold of us, folks, try.
Just try.
You can email us, the Let's Go Eat Show at gmail.com, and then we're on all the social platforms that you can possibly imagine. Thank you, Dawson, for producing the show.
Thanks,
and
Don.
Dawson went out to the Great Salt Lake and caught these shrimp and brought them in himself. It was pretty amazing.
Pretty good, buddy.
All right, thank you. That's it. So long.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Let's Go Eat and Drink Show with Jimmy Santangelo and Bill Allred. You can contact Jimmy at www.thewineacademyofutah.com. You can't contact Bill Allred. Comments, questions, or angry complaints to the management should be directed to the Let's Go Eat Show at gmail.com. The Let's Go Eat and Drink Show is produced by Dawson Dow. Our theme music was composed and recorded by Doug Wild. Recording facilities, as needed, are by the Visit Salt Lake Media Center at www.visitsaltlake.com. This is your announcer, Zach Caton, saying so long. And I would really miss those brine shrimp if they were gone.
Let's go